Casing the Cover is a monthly podcast for friends and library coworkers, Mary and Jen, review books, study the publishing industry, and try to unlock the secrets behind every cover. Can you judge a book by its cover? Join Mary and Jen on the case to find out. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Casing the Cover, the podcast where we're having a time. I'm Mary, this is Jen, and this is part 2 of our Hades and Persephone episode, because our first one ran a little long, and rather than make you listen to like a 3-hour long podcast and make me edit a 3-hour long podcast, we thought we'd split it into 2, because there was a lot to say about Phantom of the Opera, and I still have 2 books to talk about, so...
In other words, Jen bogarted the entire show. I bogarted the entire show.
That's okay. No, that was fine. It's fine. I just, I figured we'd split into 2 episodes, and either this will be our May episode or I'll release them both in April, depending on when I get around to editing. But yeah, so last episode, we talked about Phantom of the Opera, which is kind of a light retelling of the Hades and Persephone mythology, the descent into the underworld of the beautiful young lady by the creepy guy that lives underground, all that fun things.
And a little bit of Orpheus and Eurydice. Eurydice, I swear I can never say her name. I have to think about it every time. So yes.
Which the Orpheus myth and the it's kind of the other big Hades mythology. I guess there's a few. There's a couple like big Hades mythology, because there's him fighting the Titans, and then there's the Hades and Persephone thing, and then there's Orpheus and Eurydice, because he has to come beg Hades to let his wife come back to the surface, and then he fucks up because Orpheus is a dipshit. And
there's a whole lot of that.
Well, I feel like Greek mythology is just a series of people being idiots, and the gods being assholes. Which brings us to my 2 things I want to talk about. So I've touched on at this podcast on the fact that I really love Lore Olympus. And Jen has read Lore Olympus. It's a really lovely retelling of this mythology. A lot of people like to recontextualize the Hades and Persephone mythology as a love story versus I kidnapped this random girl off the face of the earth and now she's mine and I stealed her. Because I think there's a lot of people kind of see Hades as the nice one of the big 3 gods in the major Greco-Roman pantheon, because Zeus and Poseidon are complete dicks. They just like go around raping women and cheating on their wives and fathering a bunch of children throughout the 7 seas and the corners of the earth.
And the only reason Hades doesn't have a lot of children is because they made him sterile.
Well, he also only has the one wife.
He fucked a bunch of nymphs, and also there's a lot of killing. There's a lot of death.
Yeah, but I think people kind of see him as the best of them.
The serial killer.
Yes.
The serial killer brother is the good brother.
Poseidon and Zeus didn't kill anybody.
I mean, they did.
Exactly.
Maybe it's that Zeus and Poseidon are upfront about their dickery.
I guess. But so a lot of people, and it's also, I think it's the dark underlord daddy thing that people like about Hades, right? People are into that. So
I know. It's because he has a dog. You all think he's great because he has a dog.
It's because he has a dog. And that comes into Lore Olympus like a lot. So we'll talk about Lore Olympus first, because it's the one that we like. And then we'll talk about A Touch of Darkness, which is the one I did not like. So Lore Olympus, like a lot of these, recontextualizes it as a love story. And it's very much like it's a really, really genuine, cute love story. I have gotten in this place in my life where I don't like these like really controlling male leads in love stories, which I feel like a lot of romance, especially like the sexy romance, likes to just go towards, oh, he's gonna dominate me and tell me what to do. And I fucking hate that shit. And Lore Olympus is a very genuine, like, these 2 people meet each other, they like each other, they form a friendship which turns into love, right? And I really like that about Lore Olympus. And Hades is really damaged because, you know, he got eaten by his father, but he's not a total asshole prick that just like tells her what to do and demands her to sleep with him and shit, right? So this is part of the reason why I really love Lore Olympus. The kidnapping to the underworld in Lore Olympus is not a kidnapping. He has nothing to do with it. I don't know if it's a prank on him, or if I think it's supposed to be like a prank or like to make him uncomfortable.
It seemed okay. The way it came off to me is that Aphrodite is like, dude, I know you like her, and I know you're not going to make a move, so I'm going to make this weird, and I'm going to put her in your car.
She's either trying to be a wingman or trying to make him uncomfortable, because within the world of Lore Olympus, all of the gods exist. They're not all related like they are in real life, like they are in mythology, because she didn't want to make it creepy. The 3 brothers are brothers, and I think Hera, Hestia, and Demeter are kind of siblings siblings too, but they're not siblings with each other, right? The three men are not siblings of the three women.
Right.
And Persephone is the daughter of Demeter, but Demeter kind of created her on her own. She like made her out of the earth or whatever. I'm trying not to spoil the end of it. It's going into its like third season or the second half of the second season next month. So I'm trying not to talk about the ending too much, but just for context, because I want to compare it to the other story. So in this version, Mount Olympus is basically like modern day. They all live in the modern world, whereas the earth is still in ancient Greece.
Yes.
So Persephone has grown up in the actual world, in the mortal world with Demeter. She's raised her there because she doesn't really like the gods. She really doesn't like Hades. They don't really ever tell you why. And then Persephone gets to kind of go live in Olympus with Artemis and their friends. And she's exposed to the world of the gods at this party, and Hades sees her and is like, wow, she's beautiful. And she puts Aphrodite to shame, and Aphrodite gets jealous, like, fuck you, I'm gonna fuck with you because you said that. And she gets Eros to drug Persephone basically, and then put her in Hades' car, and then Hades drives home with her in the backseat not knowing she's there. So that's a descent into the underworld. It's not an affront to her, like he doesn't do it to her. It's a really good way to start things off if you want it to be a romance, to not make him be creepy and drag her into the underworld.
Yeah,
that is the creepiest part of the story. So if you try to include that and still make it a romance, it already ruins it. Just letting that be known right now, putting that out there, because we'll come back to that later.
I think, or I should say, I hope that would ruin it for just about anyone.
I don't think that it does though. And they get to kind of build this friendship, and that turns into love, and there's a lot of other stuff that happens. I will say that if you are wanting to read Lore Olympus, be warned, there is essay in it. That being said, Rachel, who's the author, she is very, very kind about putting warnings in it. She puts them on the chapters if you are reading it online. It is now available in the first, I think there's 2 volumes of it published as a book. As a graphic novel, because this is a web series. It's a webcomic. It's got the most beautiful art, and Hades is blue and Persephone is pink, and it's so they also have like the color contrast.
The only reason why you're sharing the screen with me is because you want to look at it, because you know I've seen it.
Well, have you seen the cover for the graphic novel?
Yeah.
Okay.
I shelved it numerous times.
Oh, that's true. We have a copy of it. It's got Hades in the underworld, which is basically like New York. It's like all these big giant buildings. It's like corporate America, because he's, the finance god.
The finance god.
He's like the god of like precious metals, right?
Yeah.
That's one of his things. So in Lore Olympus, he's like a banker, basically, is his job. He runs like the underworld's a corporate office that he runs, and he's the CEO, and Hecate is like his right-hand man, and she's great. She's like one of the greatest things about this series. She's amazing.
She's my favorite.
Yeah, I could see that. How could I see that? And then Persephone is in the mortal world, and it's all pink because she's pink, and it's beautiful. The art is just beautiful. But so it's a really genuine like romance that blooms over time, which I am totally into, like romances that bloom. I don't mind like enemies to lovers. I like it, but you can't be like a kidnapping asshole dick. That's not enemy. That's a creeper. That's different. There's a difference between we butt heads and you kidnap me. So now I'd like to talk about this other damn book I read. Because I went into the fan groups, because yes, I'm in fan groups. And I was like, okay, so, Lore Olympus is on hiatus, and this was like in December when the first one on hiatus. She put her mid-season finale out right before Christmas, and it's been on hiatus, and it's coming back next month. And I was like, hey guys, what else? Like, is there anything else that you like that is Hades and Persephone mythology? Because I get into show holes or book holes where, like, after I've binged something and I've really been invested in a piece of literature or television or a movie, that's all I can think about for a while.
No.
Yeah, right now it's Our Flag Means Death. Last month it was the Batman. Like, I go through these cycles where like my brain just wants to be invested in a story, and when I come out of it, especially when it's abruptly not by choice because it ended, I'm like, I need something else that is more of this. And so I went to this group and I was like, hey, what else do you have that is more of this? And they're like, oh, read A Touch of Darkness. It's great Hades and Persephone retelling. You should totally read it.
Fan group, you just got called out.
So first of all, it is very sexy. There's not really sex scenes in Lore Olympus.
Yeah. Also, even like everything is kind of alluded to.
Yeah, it's all kind of off screen.
Yeah.
Whereas Touch of Darkness and the sequels, I'm assuming there's Touch of Ruin, Touch of Malice, and then I think Touch of Chaos is the one from Hades' point of view, because that hasn't been done to death at this point. It is sexy Persephone and Hades, and all of them have this kind of like filigree with flowers trapped in it. That's what all the covers look like. One is like bronze, one's gold, and one's silver, and they've got like flowers trapped in them. It's very much that like current trend in fantasy novels where it's just nothing nothing on the cover. It's just pretty. It's just gold and floral, and it's just a lot of noise with words on it. It's a very fantasy, especially YA does it a lot. This is not YA. This is straight up like really graphic sex scenes. And I see why they found similarities in this to Lore Olympus, because like Lore Olympus, this is kind of like modern setting, but in Lore Olympus, the gods are in modern day. They've adapted faster than the mortals. This, everyone kind of lives in the mortal realm. It's actually almost kind of the opposite. When you were in the mortal realm, it is modern, and then like when she goes into the underworld, it kind of ancient. It's kind of like, you know, palaces, and not ancient like Greek ancient, but like he lives in like in a big fucking obsidian castle.
Oh,
Like it's kind of more fantasy-esque, right? And in this, Persephone again has been kind of raised in the mortal realm, which again I can see the parallels to Lore Olympus. Demeter is again super controlling and hates her having a life, and she's kind of just started to branch out on her own, again much like Lore Olympus, only this time she lives with mortals pretending to be a mortal, and they're almost represented like fae. So they have, like, when they're not wearing their glamour, they have horns, and they look like these magical majestic beings, and they use glamour to make themselves look like mortals. So it's kind of like this weird combination of like fairy court and gods, which is also like a lot of like fairy court fiction, so I used to read that as a teenager. The Holly Black stuff is very like creepy underground guys that want to do you.
Goblin Kings,
right? It's kind of Goblin King-esque.
yeah. Also, I'm totally going to use this cover as an idea for my dress.
Yeah, I mean, it's an aesthetic, and that's about what it is. It's an aesthetic,
yeah.
This cover. So she and her friend, instead of going to a party, they go to a nightclub because their friend Adonis is going to get them in. And Adonis is the dick in this version, not Apollo, who is the dick in Lore Olympus.
Yeah.
And he gets them in, and they go to this club, and it happens to be Hades Club. And I think it's called Obsidian. There's a lot about Obsidian. Like, he's exclusively allowed to wear black. Like, he's just associated with the color black the whole time, right? No, he's not blue. And I think Persephone might wear a lot of red in this version. I don't remember. I read this a couple months ago. But she goes to this club.
And red and black are way sexier than blue and pink.
No, they're not. And she gets let into like the high roller part of the casino, because even though she's wearing glamour, I don't remember who it is. It's like some sort of other mystical creature, like a gorgon or something, can like tell that she is really a god in disguise. So she lets her in because she stinks of being a god.
So does Persephone know she's a god?
Yes.
Okay.
But like in Lore Olympus, to a degree, she's kind of like this young, naive goddess. And so her powers haven't, like in Lore Olympus, like she knows that she has power, but she can't really control it. She's very like controlled by her emotions. So whenever she like freaks the fuck out, her magic goes haywire, right? Her powers go haywire. Whereas in A Touch of Darkness, it's more like she's a dud, and like all the magic she uses is basically borrowed from Demeter. So she uses Demeter's glamour, and like I think if I remember correctly, which again I forget parts of this, there's like parts where she talks about, because she's wearing Demeter's glamour, like the features that remind Demeter of herself are emphasized, because it's basically a reflection of how her mother feels about her, kind of a thing. And she's like, there's very much like, I have no life because my mom is very controlling aspect to this. Both of them kind of do that, because, you know, in the mythology, I would like you to not kidnap my daughter translates to I'm an overbearing mom. Right?
Yeah, because not wanting your children kidnapped means you're overbearing.
Correct. But you have to make Hades not the bad guy. Lore Olympus, it kind of works. This one does not so much. So she's, instead of being like a college student like she is in Lore Olympus, she is, I think, kind of just finishing her studies, and she gets like a job at like a newsroom because she has to be a journalist, because that's the only profession women are allowed to have in romance novels.
Or librarians.
No, it's only the one. Like, journalism is like the go-to. What kind of girl job do we give this girl boss? She's a journalist. Like, sick of seeing women portrayed as journalists. We can have other jobs.
Accountant.
Right. They should be an accountant.
Because that sounds like a cool job.
You know what it is? It's, I'm gonna go off on so many fucking tangents. It's like, and to portray smart women, you can portray smart women, but they also have to do something artsy. So you can be powerful and career driven and smart, but you can't like do math. So you're either into fashion or writing. It's one of the two.
By the way, in fashion, you have to do math.
They don't ever do the math in the books, right? They just are like, and then I put on this dress and it was fine.
Not that I had to remeasure the fucking thing 10 times.
Right. She can't be an accountant, Jen. She can't be an accountant.
Even though that's a cool job. Totally tried to segue you off to the flag means death and you didn't take it.
I'm not. Jen, if we start talking about that show, we're done talking about anything else. We're gonna be good. We're gonna focus. And
their name is Jeff.
Stop it. Okay. You haven't even watched the show yet. We're watching it next weekend. It's gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be okay. So she goes to Hades nightclub and she meets a man, mysterious man, at a table, and she's like, I don't know how to play poker or blackjack or whatever the fuck it is. And he's like, well, I will play with you. And then he plays and he wins. And then he's like, psych, I'm Hades, and you just played a game with me, so now I own your soul. So that's the kidnapping. Is she unwittingly makes a deal with Hades that basically means he owns her, and it's like more convoluted than that. It's like, you lost this card game of Doom, so now because you lost the card game of Doom, we're going to make a secondary deal, which is that you have, like, I think it's a year to do a task that of my choosing, and if you don't do it, then I own your soul, but if you do it, I'll let you out of it. That's kind of how it turns out. And the task that he's given her is that she has to create life in the underworld, because she is theoretically some sort of, because she's a spring goddess, she should be able to create life of some sort. And the underworld, even though it looks beautiful and lush and there's vegetation, it's all an illusion. It's all glamour, it's all magic. There's no real living things that are able to be created in the underworld. Everyone in the underworld is dead, with the exception of like the three gods that hang out there. Because Hermes also hangs out there a lot. Oh, actually, so does the other one, Thanatos. 4 gods that hang out in the underworld. And she makes friends with all of them.
Of course she does.
Of course she does. And so she has to start going to the underworld regularly to visit, to try to make life in the underworld. And as she does, there's of course this, hot tension between them. And the whole make life in the underworld, I'm pretty sure, is just to give them an excuse to sleep together. But this is also the first book in a series, so I don't know if that's what comes of it. If she births a child and that is the life she makes in the underworld, I don't know if that's where we get. I have not read the second book. I was gonna start it just because, again, even though it's not good, once you get started, it's hard to pull myself back from shit. Like, I will follow through on bad stuff, just know what happens at the end. And there's like a lot of sex scenes in this book, which doesn't bother me per se, but it's also creepy. Like, at one point he like uses, I don't think he uses magic. I think he uses some sort of magical object. It's like, the mirror in Beauty and the Beast, to watch her at home because she didn't sleep with him. And it's kind of creepy. And then they get together and they're dating because, she made him nice or something. And she got him to do like a charity event because she's nice. And then he saves her from Adonis being a dick. And then her mom shows up, finds out that they're a couple, and freaks out. And he like magics her back to the underworld. And that's, I guess, the kidnapping, because he pulls her out to the underworld to save her from her mom freaking out and making them break up.
Oh, this is so bad. There's so much I want to say here.
And like, here's the thing, right? Like, again, I talked about this in book club. I know I come on this a lot and talk a lot about things I don't like. And part of that is because we intentionally pick stupid looking shit because we think it's funny.
Right.
Part of that is because I'm an overly critical person who finds faults even in the things that I really love, especially once I've come down from the high of really loving them. But also, like, I mean, I just went on for 20 minutes about how much I love Lore Olympus. There are just things that just really make me feel a sort of way, and there are things that really turn me off. And I don't know if it's always been a thing in literature. I'm sure it has. For these male protagonists to be really controlling and really overbearing. I know it was definitely a feature of the books that I read growing up. Again,
Phantom of the Opera.
Correct. But she doesn't end up with him.
No, but still.
But she doesn't end up with him. This one, she ends up with him.
But Raoul is also kind of controlling, but also a whiny bitch.
I feel like we should be past this point where creepy guys are the ideal lover. And again, I don't think that it's a problem to have romances between people with flaws. I don't even think it's wrong to have like a character, like there's a lot of television shows and stuff, especially. This is always a thing in one of my old favorite cheese things to watch, which was Once Upon a Time, where a lot of the villain characters got to go through redemption arcs. I don't mind a redemption arc. I don't mind that he was bad, but he's, or she, or whatever is changing, and now it's okay to be with them because I see the change in a person. But when you start to give someone a redemption arc and then constantly tug back on it, like, but they're still an asshole though. Or when it's presented as, well, they're an asshole to the point where they're creepy and controlling and I'm not allowed to have a life anymore. But don't worry, I can change them eventually. Like, that has been so romanticized over the last couple of decades, and it's been a big feature in a lot of mainstream media, and it's getting worse. So there's a trickle down effect, right? And it's not obviously Stephenie Meyer's fault per se. But Twilight is a very real, really mainstream example of this. I recently reread all of them because I was on a Robert Pattinson kick and it spiraled because Batman did it to me.
Mary, you want to talk about going back to a toxic relationship?
I know. I know what I did, Jen. Leave me alone. I know what I did.
It's like, I know I know I called my bad ex. I know I did.
There's a lot in there. Edward is pretty controlling, and I haven't finished it, but I started reading Midnight Sun, which is the one from his point of view, and it's worse. It's worse because it's like it's okay that I'm constantly watching her and controlling her because she's the one that I love, and I found her after all this time, and I'm a vampire, and I can't change the way I am, and the only thing that can change me is true love. This is true love, so it's okay that I do this. But from there, we got 50 Shades of Grey, which is sign this contract so that I can sexually assault you anytime I want to.
Yep.
To the those ones that are like bad Harry Styles fan fiction, the before and after, and those, they're also movies, they're also TV shows, or it's just like incredibly abusive relationship where they just cheat on each other left and right, and again, really controlling, and he dates her on like a dare and behaves like that.
Oh, yes.
So it's not even like I'm obsessed with you, it's I'm playing you and I'm gonna be a controlling asshole dick. And then there's this one now that's the most recent one of these that's really been really popular. It's just like 365 Days, where he's literally a mob boss that kidnaps this woman and is like, I'm gonna sleep with you and you're gonna like me, and just kidnaps this woman, and it's so cute and romantic. And like I was saying, like I just thinking your room at night to watch you sleep because I'm a vampire was bad enough. I kidnapped you and you're gonna love me, and we're having a baby now, and I'm a mob boss who murders people, and I'm gonna lock you up until you love me, is so much fucking worse. And yet that's where we are.
That's Beauty and the Beast.
But it's also, with the exception again of Twilight, because Twilight was written by a Mormon who doesn't write sex scenes. These are also books that are also connected to violent sex.
Yeah.
And also like take things like BDSM and turn them really non-consensual.
Yes.
And I think that's really fucking dangerous.
Well, yeah, because people start to think that's okay.
Well, these books are written for women. So these books are written for women who now think I need my partner to be emotionally manipulative and sexually abusive to prove that he loves me.
And they're written by women.
Yeah.
Like, don't do this.
And again, like I get for some people that's their king, and let that be your king. But when like this is like what mainstream media is now, and this is like the most popular things that people are like wanting to read, and they're getting like, oh, you should read this. That's how 50 Shades of Grey was. It was like, oh, this book is so sexy, you should read this really abusive book. And it's like there is plenty of romance novels with great sex scenes that have consensual relationships and supportive partners in them. Which again is why I like the fucking Hunt and Badger book.
And we bring it back around.
It was that's the one that got away, Jen. If Twilight is my bad ex, Hot and Badger is the one that got away, right?
Got away.
Because it's
Hot and Badger is the one you can always call.
Okay, he's the boot. Hot and Badger is the booty call, right?
But he'll watch bad movies with you too.
Yeah, it's just like I don't understand why romance can't just be cute and genuine and not creepy and awful,
full of shapeshifter animals.
And on that note, go watch Our Flag Means Death, because it has a really compelling, really cute love story that isn't creepy and awful. I mean, he is gonna kill him at one point, but it's just because they're pirates. It's not because he's mean.
He's gonna kill him. Not abusive, but he's gonna kill him.
He wasn't actually gonna kill him. It's not nearly as creepy. It's not nearly as bad.
Mary needs to read more history.
He's only gonna kill him because they're pirates and he was gonna steal his identity. That's before he knew him, Jen.
Yes, I will watch this with you. I will.
It's fine. We're gonna watch it next weekend. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay, Jen. It's gonna be okay.
Can you wait that long? Because you're killing me.
I'm rewatching it now. This will be my watching it with you will be my third time watching it. So but overall, God, tangent. So I didn't like A Touch of Darkness. Like part of me part of me wants to keep reading because I want to see what happens. This is also the reason why I read all of the stupid Discovery of Witches books. But that also tricked me because in the book, Matthew again is really controlling and doesn't let Diana do anything. In the show, they way ease back on that. They're like, we're gonna take all of this and just shove it in a closet somewhere and hide it because we want this lead romantic lead to actually be compelling and not awful. So the show drew me in, and then the book is like, nope, he's possessing and control of an awful.
Okay, I have a question because you know I don't watch a lot of TV shows. Is that the case? Is this garbage in books more than it's in TV? Are we allowing this to happen in books?
No, I don't think. I think it's in both. I think it's in both, especially, and like, I don't think it's very common for them to tone those elements down. Like, they do a little bit. It's there in Twilight too. A lot of the creepier elements are toned down in Twilight, and they're not as like, Bella does a lot more like, no, I'm gonna do what I want, and I'm just gonna, like, I don't know. It's kind of different. It's not the same level of creepy. It's still there, but they tone it down a little in the movies. I have not seen or read the 365 days or the before and after books. I don't know where the levels are in terms of what the adaptations leave in and out. So I don't know where the levels of creepy exist in those books. Like I said, this is not a movie yet, as far as I know. Touch of Darkness has not been made into a movie yet, so I don't know. I don't know if it's popular enough to. I don't know how long he's been out.
If this ends up a movie before Lore Olympus does,
Lore Olympus has already been optioned.
Okay.
For a television series for Netflix. It just hasn't come out yet. It's in pre-production or something. Lore Olympus, yeah, has already been optioned for television.
Bringing Mary back around.
And like, the Lore Olympus is also really excellent in the way it portrays a lot of the other characters. Like the way it portrays Hera, for example, she's kind of portrayed as this woman who's like trapped in this not loveless, but this toxic relationship because she doesn't want to leave Zeus because part of her loves him. And part of her is like, well, I'm supposed to be the patron goddess of marriage. So what would it look like if I didn't keep mine together? Mm-hmm. And so she's very conflicted on why she stays with this not very great guy. But they're also not portrayed as like being super lovey-dovey and cute. Like they're portrayed as being a toxic relationship, right?
Yeah.
And so it doesn't cast a shadow of these toxic relationships. Go, no, they're fine. They're cute. It's cute. See, it's fine.
It's a little more real.
Like, right. And then you have the relationship between Aphrodite and Ares, which is kind of like they are on again, off again. They have this hot romance, but then they break up because they can't really stand each other. And like you kind of see them portrayed as like they're both too vain to be in a relationship, but they also still are really into each other.
They're into what each other offers.
Right. But then you also get like a really sweet romance with Eros and Psyche. So like there's different levels of relationships in Lore Olympus, which I also appreciate. Whereas Touch of Darkness, the only other relationship I think is between like her best friend and Adonis, but he's a creep and he's awful. And so you don't really get a lot of other like good examples of relationships in these books either.
Yeah. Again, Greek mythology, all the way up to the Phantom of the Opera, and then this. Does it ever go away? I feel like that's the moral of this story.
Does what go away?
Does this ever go away, this toxic relationship thing? Because again, you had the mythology built on it, then you had Phantom of the Opera, which nobody's got a good relationship in that either. Yeah. And then there's this, and it's like, why is the reason why we keep retelling this story is because like again, it is a bad relationship we keep going back to.
Well, there's always the thing with retellings where part of it is that, you know, you retell the same stories over and over because the familiar things are comforting to us, right? But you also want to recontextualize them in more modern ideologies because you also don't want to keep perpetuating the same creepy, awful thing.
And yet we are perpetuating in Touch of Darkness.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, what bothers me is it's like I understand wanting to recontextualize and wanting to retell these stories in a new light. I totally get that. But when you just keep perpetuating the same crap, it doesn't make it any better. When it's still when Hades is still kidnapping the girl, it's not a better romance. And when instead of kidnapping, it's tricking her into indentured servitude, it's not better.
Which, by the way, Hades is still doing shit like that in the Hades Town thing too.
Yeah, in Hades Town, he's not very nice because in Hades Town, there's like this implied romance. Hades Town kind of presents them as an older, like longer couple. They're more like Hera and Zeus almost. Yeah. Where it's like they've been together so long and they loved each other once in their youth, but now she's sick of being there. And every year he brings her back, you know, sooner and sooner. And he doesn't give her time in the mortal realm like he's supposed to. He just drags her back to hell, but then she's miserable because he doesn't actually spend time with her. He's too he's too into building this, you know, underworld of basically it's like what do you want to call him? It's like a power plant almost, right?
Well, it feels like he built Atlantic City.
Yeah, he in Hades Town, the underworld Hades Town is like it's a work city. It's like a what do you call them? There's a word.
It's like a mining town.
Yeah, kind of, but it's like he basically, the underworld, people dying and going to the underworld, is he's again turning them into indentured servants, and they just work in his mines, basically in his plant.
Oh, my soul to the company store.
Exactly, and every time Persephone has to go back to the underworld, she's miserable because she doesn't get to be with this man who supposedly loves her. He just kind of wants her there to be impressed by all the giant shit he's doing, and she's like, look, I just want the man that I married. I don't want whatever the fuck this is. And so it's kind of this sad lost love narrative, when they kind of find each other again through seeing Orpheus and Eurydice's love. But then, he still yanks Eurydice back in the end, so he's not great.
He's still a dick.
He's still a dick. That's kind of, it's kind of more interesting because it's not the Hades and Persephone retelling of dragging her into the underworld the first time. So you don't really see how that relationship starts in Hades Town.
Right.
But you see where it ends or where it's at. So yeah, so I really love Lore Olympus. I hate Touch of Darkness. Like, we can do better. We can have better romances. Like, we can just, like, why can't men just be nice? Why can't we just have, like, people like each other because they like each other?
You're dumb. What?
Boys are dumb, correct. It's not like those romances don't exist. I kind of liked, we talked about when we talked about Cinderella, like, the romance in that one is fine. The plot is kind of stupid, but the romance is cute.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Actually, the romance in that is okay. It's the other people, it's her family that's awful.
It's just the plot and the reality show thing, and even like I've been watching Bridgerton because the new season of Bridgerton is out, and like, I don't know how those relationships are portrayed in the books, but at least in the show, and this is because I think of who directs the television show, at least like in the first season, second season's a little more dubious, but in the first season, like, I lied because he lies to her. Never mind, he lies to her big time.
Mary's like, but Bridgerton's nice, but
it's okay. No, I lied. Problematic. It's problematic.
Nope,
They're
it's
all
awful.
problematic. The only one who's not problematic is Eloise. She's cool. Because Penelope's problematic also. I lied. I'm gonna cut all this out because I forgot about major plot points of season 1.
No, you need to leave this in because that was an awesome degradation of but Bridgerton, but not Bridgerton.
I mean,
also not that.
The Bridgerton, like, the actual, like, romance and sex of it is not super creepy because it is very like, I'm only gonna touch you if you want me to, and like that. But then it turns out that he's lying to her about being able to have kids, and that is also problematic because it's problematic.
That's a problem too.
And then she problematics right back at him. So
problematics right back at it.
Apparently, it's more problematic in the book, but it's not problematic on the TV show. So
I would like to point out that Bridgerton books are in the romance section. So the chances of them having these controlling, domineering, dickhead kind of guys, pretty good chance. I'd say not 75 to 80% chance of them being dicks.
In the first season, the Duke is not super that. He's kind of like, he doesn't want to get married. He doesn't want to be in love because he wants to throw it back at his dad, who was a dick. And he's like, I don't want to ever put your line further. And he, like, from the beginning tells her, like, I don't want to get married. I'm not going to have kids. And then it's not until, like, they're almost engaged that he's like, no, I can't have kids. And so that's why we can't get married. And she goes, no, I don't care. I'm going to marry you anyway. And then they get married. And then it turns out, no, he can have kids. He just doesn't want to. And he didn't tell her that. And so he's kind of trapped her in a marriage where she's not going to get children even though she wants them because he lied to her about whether or not he can have
also
them.
Bad.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's problematic. Different varieties of problematic. The thing is, like, there's always going to be things that are problematic, and there's never going to be like the perfect love story because no person is perfect, no relationship is perfect. But sometimes I wish the authors would just try a little fucking harder. Right?
I just heard Deb in my ear right there. No such thing as a perfect love story, and I just heard Deb's voice. Did you hear Deb's voice? Because I heard Deb's voice.
No, why? What did Deb say?
Deb will say, Princess Bride. What will Deb say?
Oh, Princess Bride is incredibly problematic.
But she will say,
it's okay because he's a pirate.
And it's okay because she's what? A spoiled princess, but not a princess?
Which is exactly why it's okay and our flag means death, because he's a princess and the other one's a pirate. It's fine.
I don't even need an explanation for
it's okay when one of them's a pirate.
I know they're both pirates and I know the history and I still don't need to know which one you're talking about.
Both also a little bit of a princess. It's kind of lovely.
Yeah.
They bring out the best in each other. We're gonna watch it next weekend. Okay, I need to go to dinner. That was my rant for the month.
Oh my gosh, we did 2 episodes, Mary.
I know. Oh, also, I think that we should take a break from doing episodes that cheat off of book club. Because we could do a Sherlock Holmes, but maybe we'll push it off a little bit. Because I'm gonna drag Jen to see The Lost City with me, and we're gonna talk about that movie. Because it's about Sandra Bullock, who is a writer, going on an adventure with her cover model. And I feel like if any movie was ever made for this podcast.
Okay, you're right. Yes, you're right. We should go see that. Okay, yes. I'm in. Yes.
All right. So maybe hopefully next episode, that's what we'll be doing. Until then, I think it's time to go. We've been talking for a long time. My mouth hurts.
Our faces hurt from smiling too much.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for cracking another case with Mary and Jen. To learn more about Casing the Cover, follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Casing the Cover. To contact us or suggest a book, email casingthecoverpod@gmail.com. New episodes of Casing the Cover release the 4th Tuesday on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher.